The air hung heavy, thick with the scent of incense and fear. Dawn bled over the Mesopotamian desert, casting long shadows from the Roman tents. Marcus Licinius Crassus, wealthiest man in Rome, stood rigid, his face etched with anxiety. He was about to lead his legions against the Parthians, a formidable foe on their own ground. Victory would mean unimaginable glory, defeat an unthinkable disgrace. The omens, however, had been troubling. Roman generals rarely went to war without first consulting the gods. Every bird flight, every roll of thunder held a message, a warning, a divine nod of approval or dissent. These signs were interpreted by the haruspices, priests trained in the ancient art of extispicy, the reading of entrails. Crassus, a superstitious man despite his skeptical nature, had ordered a grand sacrifice. The fate of the campaign, he believed, might hang in the balance. A white bull, its horns wreathed in laurel, was led to the altar. The animal, sensing the tension, shuffled nervously, its large eyes reflecting the flickering flames of the pyre. The haruspex, a man named Cassius, stood cloaked in white, his face solemn. He raised his hands, muttering an invocation in a low voice. The words, ancient and heavy with meaning, hung in the air like the smoke from the incense. The silence was shattered by the thud of an axe. The bull stumbled, a low moan escaping its throat, before collapsing onto the sand, its lifeblood staining the ground crimson. Soldiers, hardened veterans of countless campaigns, averted their eyes. Crassus stood motionless, his gaze fixed on the gruesome spectacle. This was not just a sacrifice, it was an offering of appeasement, a desperate plea for divine favor. With practiced hands, Cassius sliced open the bull's belly, his face impassive as he plunged his hands into the steaming entrails. The crowd of soldiers held their breath. The entrails, the Romans believed, were a mirror to the god's will, a canvas upon which the future was written. Cassius traced the lines of the liver, his brow furrowed in concentration. He examined the heart, the lungs, the intestines, searching for any sign, any indication of what the future held. But the signs were far from encouraging. The liver was malformed, the heart riddled with imperfections. Each organ he examined whispered of ill fortune, each murmur a harbinger of doom. A hush fell over the assembled men as Cassius turned to Crassus, his face pale. "Imperator," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "The omens, they are most unfavorable." Crassus, normally a man of action, stood frozen. The blood drained from his face, leaving him ashen. The prophecy of the Sibylline books, whispered among his men for weeks, echoed in his ears. "Crassus, by the Euphrates, you shall meet your end." He dismissed it then as superstitious nonsense, but now he looked at his men, their faces etched with worry, and a cold knot of dread tightened in his gut. The campaign, it seemed, was cursed from the start. He had crossed the Rubicon, defied the Senate, and staked everything on this venture. But as he looked at the grim faces of his men and the blood staining the sand, he couldn't shake the feeling that he had just made a terrible, irreversible mistake. The omens had spoken, and Crassus, for all his wealth and power, could not escape their pronouncements.